Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Films and Stuff. We are back. I'm Ethan. I'm here with Pete.
I'm Pete.
And Pete, last week we talked about Top Gun, and I noticed that you are now sporting the goose / rooster tribute mustache. Very apt.
I am. Timing was actually, I felt like making a change. I've got the mustache. So alongside goose and rooster, I'm going to go with another relatively flightless bird. You can call me Penguin.
Pete the Penguin.
Penguin Pete.
Penguin Pete. Call sign Penguin.
That's right.
You know what? Speaking of our favorite fictitious characters, we have been waiting for this for not as long as we've been waiting for Top Gun, and not as long as we've been waiting for Mission Impossible, but still quite some time. Season 3, Amazon's The Boys is back, raunchier and crazier than ever.
Seriously, absolutely.
Do not watch this with your mother. And honestly, maybe not with your significant other if he or she is a little bit sensitive to off-color jokes and some very graphic innuendo. Yeah?
Yeah. And I would emphasize in the innuendo, especially in the first part of the first episode.
So anyone who's seen this, we just refer to the word termite, and you will know what we mean. If you have not seen it and you watch it, as soon as you will know exactly what we're referring to. I think no more is necessary apart from that, right?
Indeed. It's quite the graphic.
They outdo
depiction.
themselves. They really outdo themselves every year. Remember season 1? For me, the big graphic scene was when the Deep was like standing on top of that whale. And Butcher like throttled the boat forward, and he basically went through the whale. And for me, that was like one of the more graphic scenes. But every year, they seem to come up with one more thing that pushes the envelope.
And maybe not just every year, maybe even every episode. There's always at least one or two moments that make you go, "Oh God!"
Yeah.
Every episode.
Who's ever doing like, I don't want to say makeup, but whoever is that person who's responsible has an extraordinary imagination, and basically they've got like a license to like do whatever they want as long as it is graphic and liquid and lots of like brain or body shrapnel flying everywhere.
Agreed. So so what did you think? So Amazon's dropping this weekly, but they did so it's 8 episodes in total.
Yep.
They've dropped the first 3 episodes in a row, which is kind of like the model everyone's going with now. Mm-hmm. And then every episode from 4 through 8 gets released weekly every Friday.
I mean, honestly, I really love The Boys. And I think one of the reasons I love The Boys is that it's such a commentary, compare on society, especially given, how much Marvel and DC superhero, universes are out there, right? Where everyone is larger than life and everything is, kind of like hunky-dory, all good. I think The Boys has such a strong following because it takes a more realistic, although much darker, look at how it would probably be if there were superheroes, right? Soups.
Yeah, I think what you hit the nail on the head. It's to say that, look, this is an incredible depiction of satire. Yeah. Satire, but not parody.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not taking anything comedic to the point of, it's not trying to be comedic for the sake of being comedic. It's the things that are funny because of the satire that they're depicting. And it's not a satire of the superhero genre. I would say it's one step further and say it's actually just a satire of society in general. And we definitely see elements of that in, the first 3 episodes. I think specifically in episode 2, where they're satirizing, the quote unquote woke movement. They're satirizing the quote unquote exploitation of said movement by corporations, the political system, and, the interconnectedness between politics and the government and corporations in society. It's just a really dark, but somehow connected to reality look on the way things are presented today in our real world, which is why it's such a good satire.
Yeah. I mean, do you also feel, though, that for me, the thing that it pulls off, which is really, really difficult to do, is to take any villain or any good guy and loathe them and feel pity or sympathy at the same time. And I think Homelander is a good example where he is repulsive. I mean, like, he's intentionally so repulsive that as you say, it's a satire because they intentionally make him cold and egotistical and narcissistic. At the same time, it's a little bit hard not to have at least a twinge of sympathy for the guy, given that he was essentially a test tube baby, that everyone is, basically like forced, to live a certain way, who obviously doesn't have any friends, can't relate to people, and the whole world, or at least, the America kind of like looks up to him and expects him to have like certain responsibilities. There's a twinge, I think, of sympathy for him. Similarly, like his counterpart, which is Butcher, right? Billy Butcher, is supposed to be the good guy, yet he's like so repulsive in his own way. It's hard to really root for him as a good guy just because of everything that he does.
Yeah,
Huey is maybe the only sincerely, decent chap on this whole series.
Yeah, I think that they present Huey as the everyman. I think Huey's supposed to be us, right, as the viewers, which is to say he's the one that we can relate to the most cleanly.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So I know we touched upon this very, very quickly before we started recording. I saw Series 1 and Series 2 because Series 1, especially because it was still a relatively new IP for me. I have never read any of the graphic novels, so I don't know where, these characters are coming from. Of course, it's not hard to figure out where they're coming from because it's such a clear satire of the Justice League, of the Avengers, of, current political positioning. But so season 1 and season 2, I binge watched in one go.
All right.
And so it was, when I say one go, as in when season 1 came out, I saw all 10 episodes in one row. Then last year when season 2 came out, I saw all 10 episodes in one row. So it's not, the thing is that the villains are so cartoonishly evil.
Yeah. Who's your villain?
Of course is the point
who is a villain though? That's the problem. Like, the good guys are really the villains.
No, that's the thing is they're like the anti-heroes, right?
Yeah.
So I think for me, obviously the bad guys for me are the Vought Corporation.
Yes.
Right? And then of course anyone really kind of running it and managing it. You saw it was Elizabeth Shue in season 1, and then you see that it's a little bit of A-Train because there was that A-Train versus Huey dynamic in the first season.
Yeah.
Then you also have elements of like these superheroes who are doing vile, despicable things, like, the invisible guy who's like stalking women in the women's bathroom, and then the Deep, who was doing a lot of like sexual assault, practically speaking, on the others. And that gets referenced in this season as well, right? So you have all these villains. So anyway, getting back to the point was, even though every episode ended and sometimes the villains were up, sometimes the good guys were up, you weren't sure who was up, who was down. By the end of the season, there was a clear quote unquote victory for the good guys, right? Mm-hmm. Especially, for example, at the end of season 2, when you have that great fight sequence between, all the the quote unquote anti-heroes versus Stormfront and practically just Stormfront.
Yeah. They're not shy. They're not shy about making Stormfront a certifiable Nazi, right? They're not.
Yeah, exactly, right? She believes in the eugenics idea and all that sort of thing. So in that sense, it's fine. But then at the end of episode 3, I realized that, okay, we've got another 7 weeks of of TV series to watch. It's going to be 1 episode a week. Honestly, I felt a little bad at the end of episode 3. And not bad because this was a bad show. In fact, the exact opposite. I felt bad because it's such a good show. Which is to say that at the end of episode 3, I just felt really grossed out by what was going on with Homelander, with what's going on with not Stormfront anymore, but with just the Vought Corporation in general.
Yeah.
And to your point, I also kind of felt bad with what's going on with the Butcher because, he's acting like a jerk towards the kid because, he doesn't want to create any attachment issues. And I don't know, it turned out like there are no winners right now.
There are no winners in the show.
And the losers there are no losers either by that same thing. But the bad guys are just so bad that I felt kind of icky and grossed out by it. And to give you context, I think this has also got a lot to do with the fact that I just binge watched 4 seasons of The Handmaid's Tale.
Oh man, that'll bring you down.
And that show
that will bring you down.
Is not designed to make you laugh in any way, shape, or form.
No.
It's a great series, but man, it is. There were times where I was just like, I needed to take a shower after I watched episodes.
You and I talked about Handmaid's Tale, and I think that's one of the shows that you had not seen, and I recommended it to you. What did you rate? What did you rate Handmaid's Tale?
Oh, I would subscribe to Hulu for it.
It's incredible, right?
It's unbelievable. It is. I'm glad that it's on my Q fillers list.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend it to anyone who hasn't watched it.
Yeah.
But I will say it is dark. It is really dark. There are lots of parallels to certain elements of society. And I'm not just talking about U.S. society. I'm talking about society in general, ultra-conservative society. There's lots of parallels to the real world. And it is like when you sit down and think about what's happening to these characters and these actors, it's gross. It's really gross and it's so disheartening. And if you stop without watching it throughout the entire thing, you're going to be you feel emotionally scarred and tired by the end of watching it.
Yeah, that's true. I have to say the thing I really feel that show got right is that, a lot of shows have a very interesting premise, but then that premise doesn't really fill out. It's like they're kind of like a one-trick pony. And they've got their little hook, and then they're just not able to build around that. It just becomes a really boring show, and they're not able to kind of weave that premise into everything. And I think The Handmaid's Tale for me always captured my attention because it was really able to kind of take that theme or the idea, of the dystopian kind of I don't know, I guess it's not a country, dystopian place, and really build around it into every element of a character and show that it's not just some people who are struggling with it, even people who want this or support it or actively brought it about still kind of suffer a little bit. It doesn't leave anyone unscathed, even people who outwardly say that they support it or they want it, or it's exactly, what they wanted. And that to me, I think is the brilliance of the show, is that it's able to kind of keep our attention on that. And it doesn't kind of just drop that, one trick pony. And I think going back then to The Boys, I can see how you would, watching these back to back, There's not a lot of optimism in there. But I think The Boys is intended not to really... It's not intended to bring you down. I mean, yes, there's a lot of stuff that's pretty like repulsive and repugnant. There's a lot of behavior that obviously, you know, no one would condone. And it's, as you mentioned, you know, it's meant more for shock value, you know, than to be taken, you know, like seriously or literally. But I find that all the characters have really been developed well. You know, how many shows have you and I watched? And we're kind of like, well, there's two main characters, and then there's kind of three filler characters. We haven't really met them, and then there's no one else. If you just, I mean, this is only like the start of the third season, but let me go through the list of characters. And I bet we know something about all their personalities, right? Billy Butcher, Homelander, Queen Maeve, Mother's Milk, Frenchie, maybe not Black Noir so much, Stormfront, Huey, Annie, Starlight, right? A-Train, The Deep, Kimiko, who's still a little bit of a mystery, Ashley, right? The PR lady who's just like hopeless, right? Now we've got Victoria Newman, Grace Mallory, who's kind of the CIA person. There's Giancarlo Esposito, right? Who's Mr. Edgar. I feel like there's one or two others. Like, that's a lot of characters. And we know a lot about their personalities. I mean, not all as deep as, you know, like some other shows, but I mean, if I just say like A-Train, you could tell me a little bit about like, what's he, you know, what are his insecurities? What are his challenges? You know, what's his background? Things like that. Like, I'm really impressed that they've given us so many characters that actually we've learned quite a bit about. All of them kind of repulsive in their own way, and all of them kind of redeeming in their own way, right?
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. I think that the show has been very good and has been consistently good about showing you both sides of the coin. It's not
that's true.
The bad guys are bad guys. I agree, and I think it's very clear. I don't think there's any argument as to who the evil person in this, show is. Yeah. But to your point, they're also shown in other lights that might be cause for at least earning some sympathy.
What would, you know, there's going to be some type of big reveal or big shock, right, in this season 3. I mean, we've gone 3 episodes in. What would be the big shock? Like, for example, do you think Starlight's going to go bad? Do you think Homelander's going to go good? Right?
I don't think Homelander's going good. I think he's such a good villain, and I think he plays off against Billy Butcher so well.
Yeah. Is Butcher going bad?
I don't see that. Yeah, but Butcher, I would argue, is already kind of there. Like I said, he's not a good guy in the traditional sense. He's not a good guy. I think he's like an anti-hero. The question is, does that, he has the temporary superpower ability now? Yeah. Does that make him go over the edge? Which wouldn't be such a shock. Yeah. Right? And because you see hints of that. But I don't think that's the shock.
Couldn't you see a scenario where everything is flipped and suddenly Homelander says, Vought Corporation is bad. I'm bringing down Vought. I'm the good guy. I'm bringing down Vought. And he starts to, and even though he's not a good person, he starts to be kind of like on the good guys team saying, hey, this is enough. Why is this corporation exploiting everybody? This is not fair. So much destruction. I was manipulated. And he actually becomes now kind of a good guy, and he goes against Vought. Do you see that happening?
No. In fact, I see that with A-Train. I think I see that with A-Train because you start to see the cracks because he's no longer allowed to be a super, right? Or at least he can't run that fast. He's not allowed to run. Yeah. And then on top of that, you see Homelander kind of making fun of him and pointing out the fact that, he's eating a lot, he's getting a little pudgy, blah, blah, blah. So I see that more than anything. And it gets to a point where like even his own family calls him out. He's like, you don't believe in anything. All your causes are kind of superfluous. They're all kind of superficial. You have no values, right? And there's nothing wrong with you just coming home and just being a young, my young brother again, right? When he meets his older brother. And so I think, because remember, he changes his outfit so that he looks like he represents Africa.
Kwanzaa.
And all these kinds
He's
of
got
things.
like a Kwanzaa uniform on. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just, and it's not, and no one's buying it. The crazy thing is no one buys it. Not even the PR people who are supposed to be representing him.
Yeah.
And so he's just like, what is that cause that kind of rallies everyone around him that he can truly believe in? I wouldn't be 100% surprised if he decides to go after Vought and then Homelander kills him.
What about Starlight? Starlight stays on the good side? Or she flips and she goes on a power trip and Huey has to kill her? Ouch.
I don't know where she goes on this.
Ouch.
I don't know where she goes on this only because at first I thought they were building up that terrible, terrible, cheesy plot line where that they were going to build up a love triangle with her old flame and with Huey.
Yeah.
I really thought they were going that way. And now it doesn't seem like it is because, at the end of episode 3, it looks like Homelander's put himself into that love triangle, which is weird. It gets a little awkward for everyone, but because Homelander is so cartoonishly evil, you never know what's really going to happen, right?
Yeah, I'm still not buying what you're selling though, Pete. I still think we're going to see something just because the show is so well known for shock value. I really feel like there's a lot of misdirection that's going to take place, and I feel like Homelander's going to be good, Butcher's going to be bad, and I'm calling it. I think Starlight is going to go evil. Like she's going to get the power rush. Although maybe I want to change that a little bit. I think it's kind of going to be a 3-way where Butcher's maybe not joining Vought, but maybe he's just kind of like his own entity, And there's kind of like Homelander against Vought, Butcher against Homelander, and Starlight kind of like takes up the torch for Vought now. Every good show that has a lot of conflict always has kind of like simultaneous conflicts at the same time. It's never like symmetrical warfare, right?
You're right. And they've been relatively good about showing multiple storylines in the same, not even just the same season, but even in the same episode.
Yeah.
And they've been relatively well balanced. Like in season 2, it was that, the Deep is in his, small town somewhere and he gets taken in by that church. Yeah. Right. And he has to escape from that. Yeah. So there's a lot of potential. Yeah.
And there's also Victoria Newman, right? Victoria Newman, who's now the head of the
Victoria Newman thing. She's got a relationship with the head of Vought.
But do you think the head of Vought is a soup?
I don't think so. If he were by now, I think they would have shown it. They at the same, like the good one thing about the boys is that their quote unquote cliffhangers they don't hold much back. And it's not a knock against the show. It's because they don't need to. I think if he were a soup, I think he would have shown it by now.
What about Grace, the CIA operative who's taking care of Ryan? You think she's a soup? Do you think she's anything special?
I don't think so. I really don't think so.
She's got such a...
Maybe, but I don't see it.
Yeah. I feel like there's one... maybe there's a new character who's going to be introduced. Kimiko.
Well, we're gonna see a lot more of Soldier Boy.
Yeah.
I don't think Soldier Boy is dead like they say they are. I think he's around somewhere.
Yeah.
I think that this is going to be a parody of like the Winter Soldier in the Marvel universe. He was taken to the Soviet era USSR. Yeah. And then he was, frozen in some kind of capsule for use and indoctrinated. And I think that's probably going to be the quote unquote plot for the B part of the movie, B part of the series. And then I think that it ends up that maybe what happens is that, Butcher has to go into a temporary alliance with Homelander to defeat Soldier Boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? because they think that Soldier Boy is the key to killing Homelander, but then it turns out that Soldier Boy now has become this supremely evil guy who is controlled, who's got this like brainwashing thing done to him by the Soviets. So he has to kind of team up with his enemy to get the job done. Maybe.
How would you feel if you were Kimiko, the lady who she's been in every episode. She does not speak.
Yeah.
How do you feel if you're approached for this? Say, Pete, we really want you in this series. By the way, good news, bad news. Good news, you don't have to memorize any lines. Bad news, you have no lines. Are you like, I don't know. That's not really for me. Or you're like, oh, this is great. Like I get to work on my like real nonverbal acting skills, my paralanguage skills, communicate with my gestures and stuff. How do you feel about that role? I feel like it's very diminishing to an actor or actress to say, like, we just don't want you to speak. Ever. Not like season 1, not season 2, like, we just don't want you to speak. It's disheartening, right?
Maybe. I don't know, actually. I don't know. Because even though she doesn't have many quote-unquote lines, she's still an integral part of the team.
Yeah.
She's still a very good actor, and she still gets her hero moments in not every episode, but in most episodes. And, acting isn't just about speaking. Like, when she has that moment with Frenchie where she's talking about how she's broken and why don't we just run away to Marseille, that kind of thing, you get the feeling because I think I got the feeling like that they were in love with each other, but they couldn't express it, and that they were going to become a couple.
Yeah.
But now I think it's like
they're more like friends.
More than that.
Yeah, they're like
really, really close friends in the sense that she can confide in him. He takes care of her. She takes care of him. And it's one of those things where they're just kind of looking out for each other because they're both equally broken in their different ways. Like those scenes were very good, even though, it was all subtitled with her using sign language. I thought those were very, very good scenes for her.
Who's your favorite character so far?
Oh, probably Frenchie. I really like Frenchie.
I like the Deep. I know that's a little bit wrong. I mean, he's a bad guy. But there's something, for me, there's something really genuine about the Deep. Like he wants to, like like he almost like he cares so much about like all the marine life. He has to eat Timothy. Remember eating Timothy?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, towards the end of the episode. Oh man, that was so cruel.
I know that's the beauty of Homelander. I feel that's why Homelander is so endearing, because he's so cruel that he can just come up with a way to like really, really like insult, diminish, like torture someone, right? So he says to the Deep, all
with a big smile on his face.
Eat Timothy.
He knows he's
yummy.
He knows he's being a creep. He knows he's being a jerk.
I know.
Everybody knows that he knows, but they can't say anything about it because he's Superman, right?
I know. I thought when he had to eat, and just Timothy is like the most wonderful name for like that octopus or squid, right?
Yeah.
It's Timothy. He's praying. He's begging for his life. Sorry, Timothy. All right. So now, after the first 3 came out, now it's going to be 1 a week. Is that how Amazon?
It is weekly, every Friday.
Is there anything else great on Amazon? Or is this their number one kind of big show? What else are we missing on Amazon? Because I feel like we see a lot of stuff on Netflix, Apple TV Plus, HBO Max. We mentioned Hulu once. Like, what are we watching? What else are we watching on Amazon?
So Amazon has made a few splashes, but they aren't consistent. They're not consistent, and they're very much a flash in the pan kind of operation at the moment. Like, if you log on to, your Netflix account once a week or once every 2 weeks, you'll see that there's a new show that you're either very interested in watching or you wouldn't mind having on in the background.
Yeah.
When you do that with Amazon, it's more like once a quarter, maybe once every 5-6 months. It's not as consistent.
Yeah.
They are working on, don't forget, so Amazon, they're working on
Expanse.
now the Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah. They've got the Expanse.
So the new Lord of the Rings
which we
show.
love.
Expanse is on, but it's finished, right? I mean, there's no more Expanse. So that was their big thing.
Yeah.
They had, I think they had the rights for Downton Abbey, but don't hold me to that. If not Downton Abbey, certainly another period piece like that. But in terms of like prime, in the news shows, they'll have 1 or 2 every once in a blue moon, and that's it.
I've heard
like
000.
Honestly,
I've heard 000 is good.
That's the crazy thing. I haven't even heard of it.
Oh, I heard 000. Like not the letters or not the numbers 000, but the Z
But actually written
E-R-O,
out.
Z-E-R-O. I heard.
Yeah.
I heard it's.
So
that's not bad.
Amazon also, the thing is that their marketing is woefully inconsistent.
Yeah.
I don't hear about Amazon shows anywhere. And like if I have YouTube on in the background, for example, Netflix, for example, is very good about dropping clips, about dropping trailers very often. Amazon, not so much.
Yeah. I have to say that's apart from The Boys, and as you mentioned, now that Expanse is done, I don't have anything that I'm really turning to Amazon for, which is really unfortunate because, I mean, Netflix, I feel, has a lot of content, but I feel like I think that's exactly what it is. I think they just put a lot of content out.
Yep. It's a numbers game for them.
I watched, I wouldn't say I watched it. I started watching something called it's just called Interceptor. Have you heard of this?
No.
So it was recommended to me on Netflix, and good for Netflix recommending things. It's very similar to our fictitious movie, Pete, Vessel.
No.
No, not in that sense, but in the sense that, so the premise is very good. I watched 13 minutes, I'm guessing. And then I stopped it because I already knew the rest of the movie. Yeah. So it's typical Netflix where it's got high production value, but everything just seems a little bit like it goes too fast, And that's why I turned it off kind of at the 13-minute mark. So the background is the United States has 2 nuclear missile defense systems in the Pacific Ocean or Pacific area to guard against Russian nuclear strikes. One is a land base in Alaska, and one is a floating base, which I had to look up to see if it's real, and it is real. It's called like SBX. And it's like think of it as like an oil rig, like an oil platform, floating in the Pacific Ocean. So according to the storyline, I don't know if that's true or not. I imagine there's more, but it's just not like Googleable. According to the show, the one in Alaska was taken over, right? There was like an attack, an inside job, and they disabled the one in Alaska. So obviously now the floating one in the Pacific is the sole, nuclear missile defense system. And then, of course, there's like a second group in Russia that, steals nuclear warheads from the government. And the Russian government says, hey, this faction has gone rogue. And then, of course, there's like an attack or an inside job against this floating base. And then, there's a few brave people that have to fend this off and so forth and save the day and blah-de-blah-de-blah, right? So the premise actually I thought was kind of interesting, but it happened fast. Is this
a TV series or is it a movie?
No, it's a movie. It's a made-for-Netflix movie.
Anyone we know in it?
No one I know.
Okay.
Although it is with Netflix, well produced, but I just thought it went too fast. It wasn't nuanced enough, and it was just kind of it was filler content. It had a pretty good premise. It had some good, like images. I could see the trailer being compelling and definitely got into it. But again, for me, after I watched that first 13 minutes, I know how it's going to be. It's going to be the lone, hero or heroine crawling in the shafts and manipulating this thing or this system and trying to do this and rigging a communication system and trying to outwit, all the other people that are trying to attack it and hold them off until the last minute. And then there's going to be a countdown. And, at the last minute, they're going to do whatever they need to do and save the day. I just kind of saw exactly where it was going. And for that reason, I wasn't really very compelled by it. Why did I start this? I started this because I feel like that's what Netflix does. It's got a lot of content. It's a little bit flashy and blingy, but the content is just very, very thin. Where someone says, hey, like, I got this great idea for a movie. They're like, wonderful, super. Keep it simple. Yeah. And here's your X $1 million budget. Stay within this budget. Either they do something like Red Notice where they say, look, we need 3 A-list actors, or they say, hey, it's going to be like Interceptor. Don't take anyone who costs more than X amount. And they just churn these things out and they say, hey, at least we've got a rom-com, a coming-of-age story, a thriller.
A spy thriller,
yes.
An espionage. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And it's more of it's smart, but it's more of a numbers game, and it's less of a, hey, is this a compelling story? Are we making art? Are we making something people are going to love? And for me, it's more like, hey, we've got to keep Pete and Ethan subscribing. The only way that they can subscribe or continue to pay is if we've got new content. We just got to keep pumping it out. I understand where it's coming from, but I have to say, I just find that some of these things are flat. And I think watching a movie that doesn't give you any type of emotional response, for me, it almost has the opposite effect. I say, if I don't see anything good, okay, fine. I'll log out and then I'll check again. If I watch something I don't like, then I kind of become frustrated with myself. I'm like, why am I paying this? I just wasted an hour and a half of my life. That wasn't very good at all. Bunch of crap. I don't need this anymore. I find I have the opposite response if I watch something bad. But
that, like you said, it's a scattergun approach. Netflix is, we don't know if we can hit the target, so we're going to fire a bunch of small missiles at it and see if one of them hits and consider that a success. I think Apple is more they're more like a handgun or a sniper, which is to say we fire once every 10 minutes, but we damn well hit the target every time.
Interesting military analogy.
Well, and then I think Amazon is, honestly, sometimes I feel like Amazon's throwing a spear while everyone's got guns.
Yeah.
In the sense that it's just so random. You never know what's going to hit. When it hits, it's devastating, but otherwise it's just it seems almost like a non-combatant in these games.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's that.
I would say, going back to what we were talking about, The Boys is, with all expectations.
Don't say it. Okay.
It is a must-watch.
It is a must-watch.
It is definitely a must-watch. I think that, coupled with my mindset that I was coming in from Handmaid's Tale, being in a dark place, and then also coupled with the fact how episode 3 specifically ended, I was just a bit not in a bad way, but I felt a bit sad. Again, that's actually a testament to how good the show is, because it's not sad because it was a bad ending. No, it was sad because that's how good everyone is, and that's kind of how they're trying to go make you feel.
Yeah.
I expect to feel fully content and satisfied at the end of episode 10 or episode 8 rather. So for the next 5 weeks, I think it's going to be wonderful. I just don't.
What's your ideal end game? How would you feel? What outcome would make you feel like completely happy and satisfied with the series finale of The Boys?
Honestly, I don't know because I don't know how many seasons they plan on going with this.
Let's just say it's ending. The next episode, how do you want it to end? Who do you want to live? Who do you want to die? How do you want it to be?
What I think would be not good in the sense that I wouldn't want Homelander to die, but if he somehow loses his powers, so that he's forced to reckon with being a normal human being and understand what it's like to be at the mercy. The thing is that he never gets his just desserts, right? And that's the thing about this, is that you're compelled to watch this because you want to see how he's going to react to the victimization that he causes upon him, he does to other people.
That's solid.
Right? So I don't want to see Homelander die because he is a good character, which is to say he's so evil that, he's a compelling villain. But at the same time, I think if you somehow find out that, that they've got the power to take away his superpowers, that is a very, very devastating way for him to go.
All right. What about Starlight? What about Huey? You want them to stay together?
Yeah, sure. I like them together, and I think it's particularly because I really like Jack McQuaid. I think he's doing a very good job as Huey. I like the idea of them together organically. Like, I don't like this. That's why I was getting a little frustrated because the show is not a cliched show. And at the first 2 episodes, when they were kind of teeing up this love triangle thing, I was like, it's such a cliched thing. Like, I don't want to see that again.
Yeah. At
all. And I'm glad they didn't go that way.
Yeah. It's also a cliche, though. I mean, maybe this isn't a cliche in life, but I mean, you can imagine it, like the strong, beautiful, female superhero and kind of the nerdy, just a lovable, good, decent guy, like every man with no power, right? Which is also a little bit cliched, which is, she has to open the jars for him. Maybe it's because she closes the jars and she's stronger. But the point is like... Yeah,
I like your idea. Yeah. If she goes evil, if she's the one who ends up going full on evil, I like that idea. Because that subverts expectations as well.
Yeah.
And, she's always portrayed as this like...
innocent,
naive, innocent woman
her
coming
mom
from
pushed
the
her
Midwest.
Into this.
Who kind of comes out of left field, ends up becoming the most powerful female hero, and then she kind of co-ops that position as co-captain of the Seven, and then she takes it fully on board.
Maybe we can see this, right? Because initially it was she didn't want to be the co-captain. This belonged to Homelander. She's a little bit intimidated by him. She was scared, and now, she's taking more active role, standing up to him, saying, hey, I choose, who's going to be the 2 members of the 7. Maybe the power, I don't want to say it's going to her head, but maybe she says, hey, like she tricks herself into thinking, look, I can make changes from the inside. From
within the system.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And that's
Huey's trying to make changes from outside the system using the law. I'll do it from within the system. And neither of them are succeeding. Because despite all her protestations.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that would be interesting. Now, again, and I'm going to caveat this for our listeners, neither Ethan nor I have read the comics.
We have not.
So we don't know what's coming. We don't know how closely aligned it is to the comics or not. No idea.
None.
So for us, it's a guessing game, and I'm not going to spoil it for myself now by going out and reading them. So I don't want to do that. I want to, let the show continue for me. I think I was introduced to the boys through this show. I'm going to continue. I'm not going to spoil it for myself by going out and getting the comics.
All right, Pete. We've got to turn our attention to some other stuff. Whether it's on this episode or another episode, we've got to talk about what else? Obi-Wan Kenobi, episode
Next
3.
week, we'll do a breakdown
Yep.
of episodes 3 and 4. So
Okay.
we've seen 3. Exciting. Certainly not what I expected, but I'm glad we saw it.
Okay.
And we'll see more of episode 4 because I think the way they're doing it is that episodes 1 and 2 were act 1. Episodes 3 and 4 will be act 2. And I think episodes 5 and 6 will be act 3. I don't know if I misread this or if I heard this somewhere. I believe that Obi-Wan season 2 has already been confirmed.
Do we need a separate episode to break that down, or should we break down some of the general points now? What do you think? Is this justify its own episode, or are we not ready?
What, for the season 2 announcement?
Not just for season 2, but more than kind of like the granular step-by-step plot stuff. How do you feel generally about how Obi-Wan has been portrayed? Like,
Yeah, I think that's a separate episode.
yeah.
I think that, when we do the recaps, we should take a chunk of time for doing that because that is an interesting way forward. I know what you mean because there is a little bit of dissonance. The Ewan McGregor of episode 3 is a far distance away from the Alec Guinness of A New Hope.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of gap.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, and I think that's the source of maybe some consternation for you. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah.
So we have to see how this goes, which is why I'm saying let's hold off. Let's see what happens at the end of Act 2. Let's see what happens in Act 3. And then I think that's definitely something we should have a wider discussion about.
We should have a wider discussion about that. Okay. So upcoming episodes, we are going to be talking about Star Wars Obi-Wan. We're also going to have a pre-breakdown of Jurassic World Dominion.
That's right. So we will go over, as we've done in the past for Star Trek, as we've done in the past for Mission Impossible, I think it'll be a good idea for us to go through the 5, if you can count them, 5 Jurassic Park movies before we see...
I think we just have to call them Jurassic movies, right? Because it goes from Jurassic
Park to World, yeah.
Jurassic Park, then The Lost World, Jurassic Park, then Jurassic Park 3, Jurassic World. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, Jurassic World Dominion. So a lot of... It's just the Jurassic series.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. So
just like the Fast and Furious. Just like the Fast and the Furious did this thing where it was Fast and Furious, then it was Fast and Furious 2, otherwise known as Too Fast, Too Furious. And then there was Tokyo Drift. Then there was Tokyo Drift. And it was like, whoa. What was 4?
So here's the crazy part. The first one was The Fast and the Furious.
Yes,
I think 4 was Fast and Furious without the.
Yes. And then 5 was Fast 5.
Fast 5.
And then after 6, and then starting with 6, I think they said like, come on, let's have like a proper naming convention, right?
Ish.
Because then it's just like the Fast and Furious 6, the Fast and Furious 7, the Fast and Furious 8, Fast and Furious 9.
Well, no, Fast and Furious 8 was The Fate of the Furious.
Oh my gosh, hold on, I've got to look this up. Fast and Furious.
Right, because it was F8, which is Fate.
Yeah. Oh, F8. You're right. Oh man, yeah. So for Jurassic, it's The Fast and the Furious. Then it was Too Fast, Too Furious. The Fast and the Furious, Tokyo Drift, Fast ampersand Furious.
Yeah.
Fast 5, Fast ampersand Furious 6. Then it was Furious 7.
Yes.
The Fate of the Furious. And then it's just...
Oh, well, there you go.
And then it's just called F9. And then it's Fast X, Roman numeral X for 10.
Yeah, I was hoping they'd go Fast 10, fasten your seatbelt.
Oh, that's not bad. That's not bad.
Yeah, so let's do a Jurassic World /park/dino breakdown.
Let's do a dino breakdown next episode. I love it.
Perfect. So thanks, everybody.
Indeed.
This has been Films and Stuff.
Pete.
I'm Pete the Penguin.
Pete the Penguin. Still rocking the tribute mustache to Rooster and to Gooseman. We got to think what you're going to rock in honor of the boys or in honor of Obi-Wan. To be determined. To be determined.
I need to get one of those Padawan rat tails.
That's what, you need the potato sack. You need the. Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, guys.
Until next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.